Hey, hello everyone. I am Brian. You are Chords and Notes Nation, and this is another review and analysis, full album review and analysis. I decided to go with Testament, Practice What You Preach. First of all, before I begin all of that, I hope you guys are well. I hope you thank God every day for the breath that you breathe in and the fact that your heart is still beating. I know I do, and I'm glad to be here. So, anyways, I am going to get into this right away. For those of you who know Testament, you know this album. For those of you who do not know Testament, you likely do not know this album. And Testament's been around for quite a while. Mid to late 80s is when they really began recording. And this Practice What You Preach is their third album, which was recorded in... I took some notes here. February of 89 and released in August of 89. I happen to remember this album coming out. And I also happen to remember owning this album at one time on cassette tape. So those of you who are my age or better, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who are much younger, you may not know. So, yeah, this is I'm sort of revisiting this album after such a long time. It was distributed under the Atlantic label, Atlantic Records, and 46 minutes long, roughly. The lineup they used, and that has changed over time, but this is like the first third of their career. And the lineup was pretty much the same, if I remember correctly, throughout that. It was Chuck Billy on vocals, Eric Peterson and Alex Skolnick on guitars, Greg Christian on bass, and Louie Clemente on drums. I know for sure they've gone through some drummers. I'm not sure where they're at now. In fact, their last album, what is it? Something about Titans of Creation or something. I have that. A friend of mine made me a copy, and I need to listen to it in its fullness. So I'll do a full album review and analysis on that one as well. That being said, back to Practice What You Preach. So those are the basics on it. It is thrash metal for those of you who are unaware. Those of you who may be looking for a new metal sound to listen to or just a new band to listen to, definitely I recommend this album. Although I do have, there's other earlier Testament albums that I would recommend as well. But I think this is probably the one if you want to listen to it, because it pretty much has their signature song, which is the title track, Practice What You Preach, on it. And overall, this album basically, it deals with more of political and social themes that were ever present during the late 80s, early 90s. For example, Greenhouse Effect would be one where it dealt more with environmentalism and being responsible stewards of the planet, basically. And really, we talk about the greenhouse effect, planet warming or climate change. All of that basically is the same concept. And that's really when that started to gain some traction, I think, in the mainstream. This sense of awareness of what are we doing to this planet, and they dealt with that topic in the song "Greenhouse Effect." Which it was nice. I mean, I know people that don't care for the political stuff in music, and I typically don't. But you know, with Testament, bands like Testament and Nuclear Assault, you kind of expect it, and it's not offensive to me. You know, it is what it is. Um, Sins of Omission is another song that deals with social issues. Now, during that time, it was weird. There was a lot of teenage suicide that was going on. And bands, responsible bands, that understood this connection between music and youth, and music being this outlet for emotion, being able to identify yourself with a certain kind of music, and that's none of that has ever changed. But there were bands out there that were keenly aware of this, and they took it upon themselves to create songs that were a platform for anti-suicide messages. Sins of Omission would be one of those, would be considered one of those. Rush did that with The Pass. I did a reaction on that one. Great song, great, you know, and I just love the fact that bands would take the time out to say, hey, you know, there's so much more out there. This isn't, you know, this isn't the end, and you need to understand that. And it actually shows that they care on a certain level as well. I mean, you know, you can criticize it, whether it be a financial move or whatever, but you know, these are artists that take time out of their creativity to address an issue and send a message. Whether they profit off the songs being on the album or not is irrelevant. It's because the message is far greater than, you know, anything else. Confusion Fusion was also a highlight for me. I guess I kind of skipped into highlights here. So Sins of Omission would have been a highlight for me. Confusion Fusion, it's just kind of a jam at the end. It's an instrumental jam. The song, the ballad, I've always liked Testament's approach to creating ballad type songs. They're slower songs that aren't thrash, that have some sort of flow to it and are ballad like. They've always done such a wonderful job with it. I've never had an issue with how they approach it, and that's kind of, honestly, that's one of the hooks that got me into Testament, because Testament as a thrash metal band, there's times where they were almost AC/DC like, in the sense of songs started to sound the same. There wasn't a lot of variety. And when Testament created ballads, or was able to take thrash songs and introduce time changes and slow things down within the song and give it some sort of dynamic variety, they do it really well. I really have always believed that. You know, for those of you who are familiar with metal, especially from that era, you had the big four: Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer. Testament could have been the fifth, making it a big five, but they were never quite there in the eyes of, I guess, people that don't really matter to me. But they were like that second tier of really quality metal. So you had Testament, could probably put Exodus in there. Nuclear Assault, Sacred Reich. I don't know if it would be second or third tier, but I kind of group them all together like that. And I guess it's also kind of the style, more like a thrash type style. And thrash wasn't really mainstream metal. We'll just put it that way. Yeah, so I mean, you know, those are some of the songs. Practice What You Preach being the title track, being the first track on the album, was also their signature song. And it really is about practicing what you preach and hypocrisy. But it really became their signature song and probably still is to this day. So a lot of the highlights for me, obviously with Testament, it's always been for me. It's always been about guitars, and you talk about your bands that have two guitar players, two outstanding guitar players. So with Iron Maiden, with Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, and of course now Yannick Gers. But back then it was just Murray and Smith. And Tipton and Downing with Judas Priest. Was it Wilton and DeGarmo? Wilton or Milton? Wilton, I think. I forget their names. Queensryche. There was that era where two guitar players were what you wanted, and two good guitar players, not just a lead and a rhythm, but two hybrid players that can play off each other. And Skolnick and Peterson, very much so in that sense. Although I think Skolnick probably took a little bit more of the forefront when it came to that, at least in my mind. But still, very good complementary duo there. Greg Christian's a good, accomplished bass player. I wouldn't say he's outstanding. Louie Clemente is a thrash player. There's a lot of that double bass stuff in there that I'm not a big fan of when it comes to drum playing, but I tolerate it because I know Testament and I've listened to Testament long enough that it's just kind of, I know it's there. And of course Chuck Billy with his vocals, his voice isn't, he doesn't do anything special with his voice, but his voice is his voice, and it's him singing. So, yeah, wow, it was quite the journey going back and listening to this as a whole. Quite a good. It's a good album, most definitely, and I would definitely recommend that you guys go ahead and check it out. That's all I have for this at this time. That is my review of the album, and I would give it probably about 3.5 out of 5. It wasn't super great, but it was a really good, solid listen, and sometimes that's just good enough. Definitely one of those albums that I would probably will listen to tomorrow when I do a workout, if I get into it. If I have time to do a workout, I'll probably listen to this again. So anyways, that's all I have. Be well, stay well. God bless you. Joshua 1:9. Read it, memorize it, get it in your heart, live it. I will talk to you in the next video. Thank you guys. Bye.